Alright, so welcome to episode 5 of the Electromagnetism series. In this episode, we're going to be studying how to use the right-hand rule that we have been studying for the past two videos, or the two topics, to determine the direction of the magnetic field and what are the poles on the solenoid, on a solenoid using the right-hand rule. So how this is going to work is that we're going to take two examples over here, very quick examples, a rough drawing, just to explain the idea, and then I'm going to write down exactly how to use it using the right-hand rule in verbal steps, so when you're revising, you can read this part if you forget how to use it using the right-hand rule. And the examples that I give you guys, we're going to be redrawing them and resolving them much more efficiently in the next parts, The example right now is just going to be giving you a rough idea on how to use the right-hand rule to determine the direction of the magnetic field on a solenoid and the direction of the magnetic poles. Because in the previous videos, what we have talked about was to determine the direction of the magnetic field around a current carrying wire. So this is the current carrying wire. The magnetic field can either be clockwise or it can be anti-clockwise, This is what we talked about in the previous videos. But now, instead of that, we're going to take a solenoid, The solenoid, we have talked about it. It is a type of electromagnet, We have talked about the solenoid before. We're going to take a solenoid and we're going to see in the solenoid, the current is in this direction. What is the direction of the magnetic field around the current, Is this the north and is this the south? Or is this the south and is this the north, So we're going to see that, and we're going to use the right-hand rule to identify all of these key points. If the magnetic field is given, how do I find the direction of the current? If the current is given, how do I find the direction of the magnetic field? It's going to be very simple using the right-hand rule. After that, we're going to talk about what the magnetic field around the solenoid depends on, just the key factors. We're going to list them down over here, So let's get started. Basically, let's do something like this. So this is a rough drawing, by the way. This is not going to be included in this picture of the notes. For the picture of this board, it's just going to be whatever I write. This is just a rough drawing. So don't worry about the example. We will write the example later in a formal explanation. If I have a solenoid, This is a solenoid, alright? This solenoid is connected to a power supply, let's say. And this is the direction of the wire around the solenoid, So if I say that the current is pointing in this direction, And I ask you, what is the direction of the magnetic field? Now, we're going to write this as a note later, but please always remember that the direction of magnetic field lines is always from north to south, Always from north to south. If I were to find the magnetic field over here, take your right hand. How do we use the right hand rule? We said we'll make a thumbs up. This is your right hand rule. Thumb in the direction of the current and fingers in the direction of the magnetic field. But when we're talking about the solenoid, in the solenoid, it is the opposite, In the solenoid, the fingers will curl in the direction of the current. And the place that your thumb points, this is the direction of the magnetic field. So, for example, in this example, the current is going backwards. So I'm going to make a thumbs up. This is my thumbs up, pointing in this direction. Because the coil is curling in this direction, I will make my fingers curl with the coil. Where is my thumb pointing? My thumb is pointing to the left. So the left is the north and the opposite is the south. What does this mean? This means that wherever the coil is turning, you will curl it with your fingers. After you curl it with your fingers, wherever your thumb points, if your thumb points here, the thumb, this is the north and this is the south, So where the thumb points is the north. Do you start with the thumb? No. You start with the current, Start with your fingers. Point them in the direction of the current Where did my thumb point? It points here. So this is the north, and we know the magnetic field lines always from north to south. So this is going to be the magnetic field. Like this, magnetic field lines. Okay. So that's the idea. All right. Again, in a solenoid, the part where the current is pointing, I'm going to curl my fingers with the direction of the current, okay? And as I do this, naturally, my thumb will point either here or either here. Wherever my thumb points, this is the direction of the north pole of the solenoid. If this is the direction of the north pole, the opposite direction is the direction of the south pole, okay? So this means the magnetic field line is going to be from north to south. Another example, let's say, same solenoid, okay, same solenoid, power supply, but in this case, okay, the magnetic field lines, the current, okay, is in this direction. This is the current. Now, in this case, when the current is coming backwards, what is the first step we do? We said the fingers curl with the direction of the current, so fingers will curl with the direction of the current. As the fingers are curling with the direction of the current, where is my thumb pointing? My thumb is pointing to the right. So wherever my thumb points, this is the direction of the north pole. The north pole is here. If the north pole is here, where is the south pole? Obviously it is on the opposite side. And this means magnetic field lines always from north to south. So magnetic field lines in this case are going to be in this direction. Okay? So the idea, I think, now is clear. In any solenoid, we're going to use our fingers pointed in the direction of the current or the coils or the loops. Fingers are like the loops, okay? Imagine that this is your fingers, index finger, middle finger, pinky finger, okay? These are your fingers. Point them in the direction of the current, direction of the loops. Wherever your thumb points, this is the direction of the north pole. The opposite direction is the direction of the south pole, okay? It could be any form of solenoid. I can even draw a solenoid that looks like this, okay? A solenoid. Alright, this is a solenoid. And let's say the current is pointing in this direction. If this is the current, again, we're nothing to worry about. The current is curling where? Backwards. So current is like this. Where's my thumb pointing? My thumb is pointing up. Okay, the current is curling here, thumb is pointing up. So this means that wherever my thumb points, it is what? The north pole. This means that this is the north pole. If this is north, this means this is south. Magnetic field lines always from north to south. Okay, so this is the idea. Perfect. Now I think if you've understood the idea in a solenoid, loops are your fingers, where your thumb points, it is the north pole, opposite direction is the south pole, okay? And as we are doing that, magnetic field lines always from the north to the south, okay? As you can see, fingers will curl here, north is here, fingers curl here, so north is here, fingers will curl here, so north is here. Right hand rule. Perfect. Now we're going to basically write all the information that we have studied at this point about determining the direction of the magnetic field around a solenoid. Let's write all of this, then we'll take some factors about what the magnetic field actually depends on. So, let's start over here. A. Starting with your fingers. Starting with your fingers. Imagine if loops are fingers. Okay? We're going to imagine if the loops are our fingers, okay? This way, we're going to point our fingers to curl in the direction of the current on the loop, okay? In the direction of the flow of current, the flow of current where? Shown by the coil turns. Shown by coil turns. like we said when we have a solenoid, if the coil is like this, if the current is like this, so your finger is going to point in this direction, okay? This is the current. If the solenoid is like this, the current is going down, so your fingers are going to point with the direction of the current, okay? That's the idea. This is part one. You always start with your fingers and the loops, alright? After this, you move to part B, which is your next step you're going to take. B. This is the most important part. From that position. What position? The position that you left over here. Okay? From this position, the side where your thumb is pointing is the direction of the magnetic field lines, is the direction of magnetic field lines. What do I mean by direction of the magnetic field lines? This means that starting from north at your thumb. Okay? Starting from north at your thumb. Then, sorry, the marker is not opening, my bad. Then, the opposite side where your thumb is, if it is like this, curling like this, your thumb is here, so this is the North Pole. This is the North Pole, the magnet going like this. This means that opposite side of your thumb is what? It is the South Pole of magnet or solenoid So now that we have written the explanation, I think it's going to be easy to revise. Okay, we're going to start with your fingers, point the fingers in the direction of the coil turning. Okay, from this position, keep your hand at this position, and from this position, we're going to see our thumb, where your thumb is naturally pointing without changing anything. Keep your hand in the same position. This is the North Pole. Opposite direction of the thumb is the South Pole. Okay, then what you will do is that you will draw the field lines. In the end, you will. Oh, my bad. In the end, you will draw field lines from north or thumb, where your thumb is, to south. And this is the idea. Okay? So this is basically how we use the right-hand rule to determine the direction of the magnetic field on the solenoid. Again, always we have the solenoid, fingers curl with the curls of the solenoid, where your thumb points, this is the North Pole. So opposite to the direction of your thumb, this is going to be your South Pole. You always draw the magnetic field lines from the North to the South Pole. Perfect. Perfect. Now that we have covered this part, let's come here, okay? Over here, we want to talk about the solenoid has a magnetic field around it. But what does the magnetic field depend on? Yani, how can I make it stronger? Okay, what is something I can do to the solenoid to increase the strength of the magnetic field? Already, we had a long wire. We looped it into many loops to increase the density of the field lines to make the magnetic field stronger. But now it's not strong enough. I want to make it more stronger. What can I do? Let's see what we can do. Okay, so magnetic field around solenoid, magnetic field around solenoid depends on a few things. Okay, let's go by them step by step. The first one, it depends on the amount of current supplied, okay? Because we said that electricity induces magnetism, and we know that the solenoid is connected to a power supply. So if I supply more electricity, more current, flow of electrons, there will be a stronger magnetic field induced around the solenoid, okay? So let's write over here, amount of current supplied. It is directly proportional. Meaning, the more current I supply, the greater the magnetic field around the solenoid. Okay? Another thing, the more turns there are on the coil, the greater current is passing through. Okay, so if I increase the turns around the coil, okay, or if I bring them together close, I'm making it more dense. So we had a long wire, we already looped it to make it dense for a stronger magnetic field. It's already looped. What if I make it more looped? I keep increasing the loops around it. This means the magnetic field lines keep becoming more and more dense. So naturally, it will increase the magnetic field, okay? If you don't understand what I'm trying to say, we had a long wire, okay? This long wire has current. We curled this long wire around into a solenoid, okay? Now, if I take the solenoid, this solenoid has a magnetic field around it, right? It has a magnetic field around it. If I take the same solenoid, but I put a bunch of curls around it, okay, a bunch of loops. So I have basically decreased the surface area once, and decrease the surface area again, make it more compact, so the magnetic field lines are much more dense now, so this is going to produce a stronger magnetic field around the current carrying wire in the solenoid. Great. So the other factor we said, it is the number of coil turns. So I use blue. Number of coil turns, which is also directly proportional. Perfect. What else? It also depends on something that is a bit unusual. You might not think about it directly, but the distance from the electromagnet, okay? If I have solenoids and I am basically increasing, or let's take magnets, okay? Two magnets. We've said this many times. If I'm increasing the distance between the magnets, this means that the magnetic field is getting weaker. But closer they are, it is getting stronger. So we can say that it depends on the distance between electromagnets. This one is inversely proportional. Meaning, if I increase the distance between them, the magnetic field will decrease. But if I decrease the distance between them, the magnetic field will increase. Inversely proportional, meaning as one increases, the other one decreases by the same rate, and vice versa. Perfect. The last one that we're going to talk about is, this one isn't something that is something like directly or inversely proportional, but rather it is something very important that we use in generators and motors. It is talking about the presence of a soft iron core. Soft iron core. What is a soft iron core? Basically, we said that electromagnets is something that can use magnetism to produce electricity, use electricity to produce magnetism, okay? Now, let's take an example for our doorbells, okay? Doorbells are using electromagnets, okay? But if we are going to use a hard magnet, let's come back to the magnetism chapter. Do you remember when we were talking about the types of magnetic materials, ferrous and non-ferrous materials, magnetic and non-magnetic materials? In the sector of magnetic materials, we are divided into two parts: the hard magnetic material, the soft magnetic material. Hard magnetic materials are hard to magnetize and hard to demagnetize, but the soft magnetic materials are easily magnetized, easily demagnetized. Okay? Soft iron core. Soft iron is a soft magnetic material. It is a temporary magnet. Why do we use temporary magnets, electromagnets? Because, for example, the doorbell. Now, I want to introduce some sort of electricity or magnetism in the doorbell. It's going to be easier for me to turn it on and off by inducing and not inducing the magnetism on the magnet, because it is a soft iron core. It is easily magnetized, it is easily demagnetized. I can easily magnetize it to turn it on to produce electricity. I can easily demagnetize it to remove the electricity. So for example, if I want to light up a light bulb, if I want to produce electricity somewhere, okay, I can use a soft magnet, magnetize it quickly. It's going to produce me electricity for the amount of time that I want. Demagnetize the magnet, electricity is not produced anymore. So a soft iron or a soft magnetic material is easily magnetized and demagnetized. You can easily play with it to produce electricity by your own will. But a hard magnetic material is hard to magnetize and demagnetize. Okay, this is why we do not use it in the electromagnets. So soft iron core is going to give us a stronger magnetic field. Okay, for those who are wondering why we don't use a hard magnet, we have just talked about that, but if you need, I can also write that over here. Okay, why we do not use the hard magnet. So not hard iron, because it's too hard to magnetize and demagnetize. Okay, while the soft iron core, it is much more easy to magnetize and demagnetize. Okay, soft iron can easily turn on and off by your own will, because it is easily magnetized and demagnetized. Okay, it is easy to magnetize and demagnetize. So basically over here we have talked about using the right hand rule to determine the direction of the magnetic field and poles, and what the magnetic field around the solenoid depends on. Okay, so if you understand this, it is perfect. This video is approximately 23 minutes. So in the next part, like I said, we're doing explanation, summary, explanation, summary, explanation, summary. So the next video is going to be a quick summary about everything we have taken here. Then we will go to the next topic. Okay.